Here at Mason Hayes and Curran, we have a really deep and diverse healthcare practice. We could touch on all sorts of different themes and trends for 2023 within that broad practice, but we've picked out five that we're going to speak about now. Those five are artificial intelligence and its impact on digital health businesses, corporate transactions, the mandatory open disclosure regime, increased governance demands, and finally, the capacity regime that's coming in. So firstly, digital health businesses and artificial intelligence. So we see 2023 as a year that's going to be really key in terms of artificial intelligence. There is a new piece of legislation, the EU Artificial Intelligence Act, that isn't finalised or enacted yet, but we expect it will be in 2023. And that's going to have a profound impact on digital health businesses because part of that piece of legislation will relate to high risk artificial intelligence systems. And as part of that, products and safety components within products will fall within that particular net. And therefore, there's going to have to be a lot of planning and strategy from digital health businesses to ensure that any products that they have in place at the moment, but any products that they are developing as well, fall within the parameter or comply with the parameters of this piece of legislation, even before they know exactly what it's going to say, which is not easy. But I think it's a step that all digital health businesses need to be really on top of at this stage. The second point I'm going to touch on is corporate transactions. Obviously, within corporate transactions, we deal within a whole range of different healthcare subsectors. The first one, again, I'll talk about is digital health because we've continued to be active in digital health with a number of our key clients who have continued to transact, notwithstanding the kind of difficult fundraising market that we've seen in 2022 with all sorts of challenges around rising interest rates, inflation, cost of borrowing, different understandings of what valuation should and should not be agreed. So these are all challenges for the fundraising market. But as I say, digital health is such a strong subsector and such a developing subsector that we see that continuing to transact in 2023, particularly with the wall of money in private equity. And that's a trend we expect to see in 2023. The second subsector I'm going to mention within healthcare and corporate transactions is nursing homes. So from 2019, we saw an absolute consolidation of the Irish market for nursing homes, where large operators, large international operators and private equity came into Ireland and created these large groups of nursing homes, having bought groups and bought individual nursing homes. We saw that slow down somewhat in 2022 due to a number of factors, not least the headwinds I spoke about a minute ago, but also things like fair deal rates having not increased in line with inflation and energy prices and things in nursing homes, and also new HIQA requirements, which have rendered a number of different rooms in different nursing homes not fit for purpose, which has increased the challenge for some nursing homes. So it's been a more challenged sector we are still acting on, and have seen a good few nursing home transactions, and we would hope that will be unlocked again in 2023 as and when the fair deal rates are renegotiated. The third trend I want to touch on is mandatory open disclosure. So this is really political, it's really sensitive, and it's high on the government's agenda at the moment. The exact legislation is being debated still. But essentially what's happening is a sea change from voluntary disclosure to mandatory open disclosure. And what this means is that when there's a patient safety incident, essentially the existing regime is that it's voluntary as to whether that would be disclosed to the particular patient. Whereas under the new regime, it will be mandatory. There will be no choice that the doctor, the healthcare provider, the hospital will have to disclose the particular patient safety incident to the patient. The fly in the ointment, so to speak, and the reason that the legislation is taking time is the actual definition of what a patient safety incident is. So it's not straightforward, but it's a really important step, I suppose, in protecting patient rights, and has been really topical in the Irish press. So that's something, when it is enacted, that hospitals and healthcare providers are going to have to obviously be really focused on in terms of making sure that they understand the requirements and comply with them. The fourth theme that I'm going to touch on is increased governance requirements for healthcare providers. So what we are seeing is far greater governance time and effort having to be put into reporting obligations for large healthcare providers, hospitals and so forth. An example of that, and as I say, we expect to see that increase again in 2023. An example of that obviously is the HSE requirements around their annual compliance statement. But that has a lot of reporting requirements in it, which overlap with other requirements that some healthcare providers have. So if you look at large healthcare providers in Ireland, a lot of them are charities as well. So what we're seeing is that a lot of charities have to comply with the relatively new Charities Governance Code. But at the same time, the information they have to report via that is already something they have to report on in the HSE annual compliance statement. So we, our charities team, are helping clients to navigate that. The final trend that I'm going to speak about as we move into 2023 is the new capacity regime. So just before Christmas, new legislation was enacted under which there will be a new capacity regime. And what that means is that if there is an incapacitated person, a vulnerable person, that there is a new system and new checks and balances around who has the power to act on behalf of that person, which is obviously a really important step in protecting the rights of the incapacitated and also those around them, I suppose. So the new system will have 3 different tiers of delegee who can be appointed to act on behalf of an incapacitated person. It's a really detailed system, so will require some understanding and advice for those stakeholders involved. But it's a very positive step, as I say, like some of the other steps we've talked about in protecting the vulnerable.